Well, hey, rail fans and model railroaders. Welcome back to another episode of Getting Back on Track with Steve
and Roxy.
So in the last episode, we got busy and we put in our declines that take us down onto the lower level. And we ran some trains.
So this time, in order to complete that final loop of the layout, we've got to get in there and lay some cork.
So with that being said, let's get this work done. So we are finally getting the last loop worked out. For this phase, we're going to use the white glue again to get the cork adhered to the foam. It's an easy task as we only need to follow the track line we had drawn on the foam and the inclines. So we've learned a few good lessons from the previous lines we'd installed. First, when splitting the cork pieces, if you'd look at the beveled edges, one side is smooth and the other will be rough. So we want to make sure to always face that rough edge away from us as we're laying the track. Now we will sand it before laying track, but even with sanding, it's not as smooth as that smooth factory edge on the bevel. So I think it's better to have it facing towards us where it's in plain view. And like I said, we're going to be sanding it anyways, but this is just making sure it looks good for sure. The second thing is we want to make sure that we use lots of tacks, and I mean lots of tacks. We want to be sure to have this as flat a surface as we can get, because it makes it we don't have to spend as much time sanding it when we get done. And we will be sanding it. A final sand is really important because you want to have these as smooth as you can get them, because all the little bumps and banging along on the tracks, if it's uneven surfaces, will cause derailments, and it's just not going to be as much fun to run if we're having to fix derailments all the time. I really like how well the curves are coming out on this layout. We have some areas that give us some big sweeping curves, which is really nice. Yeah, I think maybe the tacks is probably some overkill, but so far it's worked really well for us to do that because the other two lines we put in are really smooth and the train's running really well on it. And we didn't have to spend a huge amount of time sanding it. We had a few bumps that were easy enough to sand out, but for the most part it was nice and flat and smooth. The final thing that we figured out with cork, and especially when it came to turnouts, is we found out we didn't need to be as finicky as we started out being when we were laying the cork in. The cork is really pretty forgiving, and as long as you get it good and flat, a little waviness here and there, little gaps here and there is not as big a deal, and you can fix those things down the road. But it's really a stress-free activity, which really adds to the enjoyment of doing this. I find laying the actual track to be a little more stressful than the cork. So far it's looking pretty good. Almost to the swing bridge here. Now going up onto the swing bridge area, as you recall, we used some wood to provide a nice solid base for us to get our track work going out across the swing bridge. Because of this, we can't just push our thumbtacks in. We need to use a ball peen hammer to go ahead and set those tacks down to hold that cork flat, which isn't too big of a problem as long as you don't hit it too hard and break the top off that tack, which I broke quite a few of them, but we got plenty. But the white glue and the cork on this wood seems to work pretty well. All in all, the swing bridge has worked pretty well for us. The upper two tracks, they run across there pretty good. I did add a latch to help hold it in position, but that's really all the adjustments I've had to make. So I think I got pretty lucky on this one. This last section just runs from the peninsula on around back to the swing bridge. You'll notice we've moved the track line a couple of times on here. You can see the old line, and we made some adjustments to it to get a little bigger curve to it. And I think it worked much better, and it came back onto the peninsula a little better too. And so far, I'm pretty happy with how the inclines and declines are turning out. I think they're going to work out pretty well for us. Here again, we'll put the rough side facing away from us on this cork. We'll put the last few pieces in, and then it'll be a matter of just waiting around for it to dry. A few more hammer taps, and we're done. Then on to the fun part. We get to remove all of these tacks. Always kind of enjoy doing this part. It's rhythmic and you just zip along. I found if I use one of those metal can openers used for household paint cans, it works really well for popping these tacks up out of the wood area, and it doesn't do any damage to the cork. So I think that worked pretty well. Where the foam areas is, I can just reach in and pluck them out without a problem. But this part is pretty satisfying to me. It's fun to get them all out and see it finished up. Plus, I'm running trains while I'm doing it, so what's not to like? Coming around to the home stretch here, almost done. Oh yeah. So adding this loop, it's going to give us about another 45 foot of running track, which is going to be pretty awesome because you'll be able to run a train between all three tracks. And it gives us a lot of extra space for more scenery and structures. So we're still in the planning phases of that. I've got some buildings I've been 3D printing, but we're excited. We're good. Well, there you go. We got in there, we ran some trains, and we got a little bit of work done.
So we went in, we laid all the cork for the loop, including across the swing bridge. Got it unpinned, sanded it out nice and smooth so it's ready for track in the next episode.
So on the next episode, we'll get going on laying that track. But in the meantime, you guys have fun working on your layouts and running your model trains.
Make sure you hit the bell so you're notified of our next video.
Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time here on Getting Back on Track with Steve
And Roxy.
Bye
guys.
all.